So now, when you work, what's your like? Do you get up at 4 in the morning, write 500 words? How does that?
When I wrote the first two books, I wasn't working full time.
Okay.
So I had a little more time. I was working 3 days a week, 4 days a week. But this book was a little different, and I had to. I'd get up at 5 in the morning, do 2 hours of writing, or all of a sudden I'd get inspired about 11 at night and write for a couple of hours. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep.
Right.
Some things came to my mind, so I'd jot them down and then make sure I remembered the next day and wrote. It was sporadic.
Computer,
yeah.
Naturally.
Well, actually, I wrote longhand. I just have the hardest time typing away on the computer initially.
I think I write longhand because I'm pretty slow on the computer, but I like to write it longhand, look at it for a couple of minutes, and then change things around a little bit. And if I knew how to change them around on the computer, I'd do that, but I don't know. And before I know, the words are scattered all over the page, and I have to put it away. But so I prefer to write it out longhand. Now, so you try and work every day, 7 days a week?
Well, now I work Monday through Thursday, 10 hours.
No, I mean in the writing part.
I'm sorry. Yes, in the writing. Well, right now I'm not doing much writing. I'm just starting to promote this, which is a lot of work. I have some people helping me, but it's a lot of work just doing that. So at night I'm busy trying to get that done and get some interviews and.
How about the publisher? Is that a difficult thing to find a publisher?
Yeah, this is actually a different publisher than I had before. It's Libros International, and they're located in Spain, but they have an office in the United States as well. But basically everything is done long distance. Everything is emailed to each other and all that. They're a great group. So far, so good, and that's a hard part, finding a publisher.
It's the old movies. They made movies about it. You keep sending your envelope out, and they read it out there, and they send it back, and it's got the rejection button on it.
A million rejections.
And
you hear, I belong to the National Writers Union, and a rejection is just part of being a writer.
Right.
And
Can't take it personally.
And I learned something interesting. John Grisham, who's a best-selling author, wrote 4 books. He started giving away his last books. He just felt like such a failure. He was giving them away. And then he hooked up with this book club, and he gave his books to this book club, and then it started to snowball. And now look at him. Yeah, it's just one of those strange things. But people who are famous now would be on, like Emily Rooney on Channel 2, at 7:30. They come in, they write a book, like John Grisham. He writes a book. He goes right to the head of the class. He's in there talking about his book, but somebody who hasn't had success yet has got to go and do all these other things. Like, could you go to, is this book available online, Barnes & Noble, all that? Yeah, you can get it at any online bookstore. Or you can go into, right at this moment, you can go into a bookstore. It might be in some bookstores, but you can order it. And it will be there within 4 or 5 days.
How does it, just to regress
or you can get it through my website as well. I have copies.
When you, because I never wrote a book now, so when you start, do you start right at the very beginning in 1951? Or do you say, let's see, Molly's 19 years old and she's off being bad and blah, 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 and kind of work the whole thing around? Or how does that part of it work?
Well,
or do you start at the end and go this way?
No, I start from the beginning.
Right from the very beginning?
Yeah, start from the beginning. I knew in my head, well, what I did initially is I had an outline.
Right.
I had focused on key words that I wanted to bring into the book.
I love
Catholicism.
I love puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
When he was trying to put the puzzle pieces together, because that's I think a common thing. People have these thoughts, and you have a thought here and a thought there, and you're trying to put the pieces together. I thought that was a nice term that he was using, trying to figure out where he was in his own head.
Right.
So you had you wrote down an outline.
Yeah, I knew what I wanted the content to be. I just didn't know how to do it. I was also trying to write with my family of origin in mind, because I didn't want them to think it was about us.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
you know.
That would be automatically somebody say, your sister would be saying, you wrote that about me.
Yeah. And actually, basically all read it, and they're, you know, they're still talking to me. They don't
good.
think it had to do with my family.
Yeah. So like when you, before you wrote the first one now, let's go back a little bit. Do you decide to say, I think I'll write a book? Wow. Must have woke up one day and said, wow, I could write a book.
Well, what happened with that was I was a visiting nurse, and I would go into different patients' houses. Mm-hmm. And I went into this one guy's house, and I know he won't mind me mentioning his name because he was on TV with me. His name was Joe Lombardo, and he was from Burlington. And I would have to call other patients from his house to say I'm on my way or whatever, and they would give me a hard time for whatever reason, or I'd have to make a doctor's phone call, but I would make him laugh. I mean, I had to go in there twice a day to change his dressing. So I'd make him laugh and tell him stories about certain patients without mentioning names, HIPAA laws. So
and he said, you should write a book.
Yes, he did. He said, why don't you write a book? And so one day I'm jogging around Horn Pond, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to put this all together. And I started to. And while I was doing it, my mom died in 1998, and I had to go up the attic. That was my job in her house in Watertown where I grew up, and I had to clean out the attic, and I found all my nursing books and my nurse's notes from 1970, 71 when I graduated. And I said, oh my God, look at these. So it was meant to happen. It was just the stories.
Now, how do you get to, when you started in 51, you started progressing along through the 60s, and now you begin to say, how am I going to wrap this up? Or does it just flow?
It just flows. It just came to me. It just came to me. The book was actually 450 pages, and they knocked it down 100 pages.
They take them out.
Yeah.
Do you have to argue about that? Do we argue about that? Well, I want that in there.
Yeah, we did, but it wasn't arguing.
No, it was the editor.
Yeah. She would say, I suggest.
Right. They have editors here. They'll edit this, and they'll say, we should take that out. And I say, no, I want that. No, they say, no, because it's their job. An editor's job is to make you better.
Right.
That's their job, and they do a very, very good job of it too.
Yeah.
So that all sounds wonderful. So, Kate, this is great. I'm glad you came in. Now, what I want you to do is shake my hand and give your website. You have a website and email or whatever you want. You give it out, and then later on we'll write it down. We'll give it to Kevin, and he'll put it up when we put up the credit. So. The
website's simply my name. It's kategenovese.com. So www.kate, K-A-T-E, Genovese, Genovese.com. And goes to my website, and you know, it also gives events that I have coming up. I have a book signing this Saturday. We'll probably be way past that, but I'll have some other things.
Where is the book signing?
This one is in Watertown, at the church I go to.
Do you schedule these things? You try and do this yourself?
This one I did myself, and I just did one. I did Earth Day at the Woburn Mall with with the writers group. So we had a table. And
the people stop and
yeah, I actually did pretty good without any advertising. I'm very grateful for that. And a couple of the other authors, Magi Ragucci, I don't know if you know Hirsch.
Masi Ragucci?
Masi.
Yeah.
And Jean Freeman, Jean Freeman, she was a teacher at the Clap. I had her books for sale.
Yep.
Katie's Pond. So, you know, it was a fun day.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Again, right here, 2 weeks since my last confession. It's very, I'll have to say, I read it, I was enjoyable. It has a lot of stuff in here that I related to because of the 50s and the 60s, the 70s, and right up to date. And it's a pretty complicated story, but it's a pretty true story, too.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.